Hey everybody, welcome to When We Walk. I'm Micah.
And I'm Shireen.
And this is a little podcast where we sit on a couch and a chair and discuss what we talk about when we walk. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of why we started walking together.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I do.
What would you say?
I would say we needed to get away from our children. No, that was a very harsh way of saying it. No, I think we wanted connection time.
Right.
And it was like the first way for our kids to practice being by themselves.
It was. I know.
So we would just like start for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We would make sure they were set up. I think Laylee was in like 5th grade, maybe 6th grade, somewhere in there. And she was so ready for us because she wanted to start like babysitting, basically bossing the kids. Mm-hmm. And it was like this glorious freedom.
It was amazing. Oh my gosh. After so many years of always either just being on as a parent or
having to get a babysitter,
money to get a babysitter, this was just a level
like
of
the
freedom.
Glimmer
15 minutes would be like, oh my gosh.
I know.
Yeah. And
it was nice because when we would go out on dates, like we're so tired by the end of the night and dinner and everything, you're like exhausted. So having conversation, but being able to go on a walk and have a conversation while you're getting exercise, we're out. We love our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We love walking in our neighborhood. It's so pretty and inspiring. And so it was just like rejuvenating for us. Yep. And then I had just come out of a season with staying home with kids and stuff, and I think I just started working, and so trying to get back into a rhythm of exercise, but for both of us even,
just move our bodies.
I know, and so to be able to do it together was really fun.
And what started as like 15 minutes became like an hour, like our little loop that we do. 2 options that we go to depending on the day and how much time we have, and then we would not early on, but a few years back. Once we were kind of in the hour a day or hour a few times a week rhythm, we would just in the winters call it quits because winters here are brutal.
So cold.
And it gets dark early and all that.
It was harder to
get in. And then
a
couple of years ago, we were like, you know what? Let's game up for winter walks. Like, let's gear up for winter walks. Let's get the stuff.
Which is a miracle for me.
For you. Absolutely.
Absolute miracle.
Yeah.
But if you get the right gear, turns out
it's all about the gear.
The right gear, the right shoes, we can handle it.
Yeah.
And it was really enjoyable.
If the wind's really whipping,
you can't do it.
You can't do it.
Super windy.
Yeah. Yeah, we were able to stick with it. And I think some of that was because when we're not doing it, and even just getting outside and getting some fresh air, even when it's cold, we recognize that in those winter months when we're not doing it, we felt different.
Yes.
Right? Like it wasn't, there was the connection opportunities you and I had kind of apart from kids, but also it was, just going on a walk is good for your physical health and your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both needed it. I definitely needed it coming out of the season of being home with kids. And then I was just getting into working. Yep. And I think it was hard because I needed space to be able to process, and we would walk and spend a lot of time talking and processing, and obviously processing, are we going to, future things, but then also, past or, things that happen in your day, to be able to talk them out and process them while being out in nature. There's just something that's really kind of healing about that.
It really is. Yeah. I think there's a lot of research on kind of the mental health benefits of walking and being outdoors. But you have been on a great mental health journey. Maybe not, you wouldn't use the word great. You have been on a mental health journey.
On a journey, yes.
Our walks have been a part of kind of the care program. Talk a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about that.
So
and start wherever you want.
I would say, so I would say I'm struggle with anxiety, probably anxiety disorder. I had a counselor say, this is what you have. Yeah. Even at one point she said OCD, which I still struggle with that one a little bit, but I can, after going to counseling and her kind of saying those words out loud. I think it made me go all the way back and start. I mean, you remember I went on a spiral after she said those words, but I think it was actually, now looking back, a little bit freeing, because I think I went back all the way to, I mean, I know as a kid I struggled with a lot of just fear, but then when it came to in my 20s, it became like anxiety, extreme anxiety. Like I would have panic attacks. I remember in the middle of campus, even just like walking to class, just the most random times, I would kind of break down and have an anxiety attack. I would definitely, you know, I still struggled with fear and stuff in college. Some, you know, demonic and things like that with my dream life, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I think just really fear and anxiety kind of partnered together in my mind and my heart, and just led me down a really challenging path for years. And I think I didn't, because that's all I knew for myself. I think I thought it was normal. I really do. And then we got married, and I really struggled with anxiety, and you saw it manifest in a lot of different ways, very unhealthy ways. I don't know.
I don't remember anything super unhealthy. I remember your first panic attack after we got married. That was like a big eye opener for me. Of like, this is more than just you saying, oh, I feel stressed. Because ever since I'd known you in college, it was, you felt stressed about everything. It was just kind of your tagline. And I didn't think much of it. And then when you had that first, like, for real panic attack, I was like, oh, this is like, there's more going on here than just you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the day.
Yeah. And we didn't know people. I didn't know anyone who had struggled with it, or at least talked about it at that point.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and because, like, when I started struggling with that and then really came into a deep understanding of Jesus, I think I just assumed, as a Christian, I should not be struggling with this.
Right.
And it wasn't a message anyone told me. Like, it wasn't.
It's just connecting dots of like, well, if he's the Prince of Peace, then.
Right. Then this is how I should be living. And instead, I was definitely not living that way. Right. Not in my own brain and in the quiet of my own space. And I remember sharing it with a girl who discipled me, and her definitely saying, okay, this is not normal. And we need to be praying. And a lot of it, she prayed more kind of against fear and, you know, the dreams and things I was having. So the anxiety piece still kind of lived there on like a low level. I think I had just learned how to live with it. Right? I mean,
it just became your normal. I didn't
know that wasn't how everyone thought.
Right.
That everyone lives with anxious, fearful thoughts all the time. I just thought that is what life was. And it kept going. I mean, nursing school is already stressful. But I had some really bad ones. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I remember one of my professors had to like pull me out. I was like,
that's the one that I am referring to.
Manifested in class. Like I like crumpled to the ground. My body was shivering, shaking. I thought something was wrong with me. I was like, y'all need to take me to the hospital. They're all like medical professionals in the room, and they're like, no, hun, you're having an anxiety attack. I'm like, really? That's what this is? It was terrible. It's a terrible feeling. Because you really are out of control of your body. And it isn't just anything just in your mind anymore. Like, oh, I can just calm this and turn it off. Like, you can't.
Your body's doing
Your body has already, and it's been for so long that is now how my body knows how to react.
Yep. So we're living in a world right now of like pop psychology, Instagram psychology. I mean, everybody's got their theory on if you'll do this one thing, then all your mental health issues will go away. Or there's the other, you know, line of thought, which is just like, this is just life, and you're going to live this way, and it's just kind of how you're going to be. And like so many things you and I talk about on this podcast, there's probably somewhere in between. that is actually where the Lord wants us to be and allows us to dwell. And so let's talk about the different things that have worked for you and maybe people that we know, because I think we are multi-layered people.
Absolutely.
Like, we're complex, right? We have a body, a soul, and a spirit, but even, our soul is kind of a word that encompasses our mind, our will, our emotions. So there's just a lot.
There's a lot to us
with all of this of who we are. And so I don't think there is a silver bullet. I don't think there is a one-stop shop for all anxiety or mental health issues to end. And so I think we can have a whole battery of approaches that actually address the different aspects of who we are.
Right.
And so talk about like some of the things that have been most helpful for you coming out of, because you're in a much better place now.
Oh yeah.
The last 3 years, I would say, you've really kind of come out of a lot of things. What are some of the things that you say have been really helpful, and why?
I think for me at least, it depended on the season. Remember, like early on, at least in college and then nursing school, I kind of just figured out my own coping mechanisms, and I really spent a lot of time with the Lord. Yeah. That was all I knew to do. Yeah. And it really did help. I mean, I would memorize just
I remember that.
So many Psalms, Psalm 91, Psalm 18, Psalm 3. Like I had all memorized. I would write them out and like put them in places. I would have them in my notebooks for school. I had them everywhere and would just pull them every single time I needed. Like if I could tell something was stirring, then I would just pull that psalm or pull that scripture and really just spend a lot of time in prayer. Yeah. I mean, I clung to Jesus in those seasons because I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. And we had no money. Like, going to counseling was not even an option. We didn't even have like health insurance. I don't think
we did.
We did.
I don't think it was good. We didn't want to ever have to use it, but it was there.
So it wasn't really like even an option.
Not really.
And the idea of getting on medicine wasn't even an option. I didn't know anybody. Like we didn't know anything. Yeah. So that was that season. Then like having little kids, I definitely struggled with anxiety there. And like I said,
think in that season you just thought it was.
I just thought it was normal. This is just stress.
4 kids.
Yeah. But I think the biggest piece for me there was community. You remember I went to Chris Beecham's house.
That's true. Yeah.
Every Wednesday morning with a bunch of other moms in ministry of kids, and that was my lifeline.
You were a different person when you would come back from that morning out.
That was like my medicine.
So great, yeah.
In that season, community was my medicine because I was home so much with these kids and feeling like this is so challenging. Just the way I'm wired and made up, and I wanted to be such a good mom, and I wanted to do everything right and have this great house and have the kids that were put together and behaved well, and we just had a lot of them in a short span, and you were in ministry and you traveled a lot in that season, and it was just really stressful. And so community for me in that season, same thing, clinging to Jesus. But then I remember I think it was just a really hard season. You brought home a book. Do you remember this?
No.
A Rebecca Lyons book. I don't remember. It was Free Fall to Fly.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yep. And she talked about her anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the most freeing. I remember, I cried through that whole book.
That was like a game changer for you.
Yes. You had heard about it. You brought it home and gave it to me. And I remember it being, I think I was mad.
I don't remember you being mad. I remember it speaking so accurately to where you were.
Completely. I felt like she was describing my life. And I think it was at that point that I was like, this is not normal. The way
not normal, but like it doesn't have to be this way. Like there's something going on that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
And realizing I need more tools than this. I think I didn't really know any counselors or anything, but I did go to people who I think would give me wise counsel in that season, and who would pray for me, who I could share things with. I think we talked to other married couples because it was affecting our marriage.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. How could it not? Was. Yeah.
So I think in that season, we really just leaned on the community we had. But I think it wasn't.
And I'll say this for anyone on the other side of it that's listening. I was not a very good caregiver. I'm a pretty empathetic person.
You are.
But I just did not have the empathy for this. I thought it was like, just try to get more sleep, or just like try to like, eat more protein, or like, let's, try to think positive thoughts, think happy thoughts, like just,
be thankful,
be grateful. Like I just wanted to like prescribe something quick and easy that might turn the tide for you. That's probably why I gave you the book, because I thought, like, I don't know, maybe this will answer for you. So it's hard.
It is hard
on all, the way it impacts relationships.
Everyone. It's not just me inside my head. It is everyone. But so for me, I think then fast forward to, I think I had found enough tools. Like I did do all those things. I did practice being grateful and thankful. I stayed in community. I was praying. I mean, literally every season clinging to Jesus and scripture and things like that. But then we finally got to a point where I realized I need something outside of everything else that I've done. And I finally found a counselor.
Do you remember how that came about?
No.
So you, you remember this?
Yes.
You were texting me about, I think I need a trip. I think,
I wanted to go on a trip. You wanted to get,
because you love your trips.
I do love trips.
And they are good for you. They're good for us. But it was something, I don't even remember why, but like you had said, hey, I've got some ideas. Let's visit this place, or I'm looking at Airbnbs or something like that. And my response back, I still remember standing at my desk texting you this. I think you need more than a trip. I think you need a counselor.
Oh,
and I don't know how you responded, because I wasn't in the room with you. I texted you, but
I think it took me a minute before I was able to swallow that one.
It probably wasn't delivered
over
the best
text
way.
No. So do not do that, people. Do not suggest counselors.
But you did. I mean, I credit you for having the humility to, instead of defend yourself, to be like, oh, okay, like, maybe there's something to that.
Well, I was definitely in a place. We had talked about it so much, probably on our walks, probably into the night, late into the night conversations, that I knew I wasn't in a healthy place. But in my mind, like, oh, a trip will just solve this problem. Let's just get outside of our normal. Because I think those are helpful.
You were super struggling, and you were just like looking for an answer.
Yep. And I remember you said that, and I was like, I don't think I was happy about it or the way you delivered it.
Right. Sorry.
But I knew. I remember thinking deep down, I'm like, yep, he's right. I finally need to like just find a counselor, someone I can talk to. You had already gone through counseling a couple years earlier, and it was super helpful for you. And I think I realized this is an okay thing to do. I think it wasn't even a prideful thing for me. It was more, I have friends, and I do. Right. I really go to, there are a couple of groups of girls that I go to for things, and I am very vulnerable and honest, and they pray for me, and they share things with me. But I remember you and I talking and thinking, a counselor, there's something different that they are going to offer me that's different than my community.
Right.
Yep. And I finally found someone I trusted and went to see her a couple of times. And not long into it, she gave me a little diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then suggested medicine. And my first reaction, of course, wanted to be like, I don't need medicine. You're just
I've got Jesus.
Yeah, I've got Jesus.
I'm a very capable person.
Yeah, and I've been fine this whole time, and I made it through. And you just give me the right tools. And I remember her telling me, I can keep giving you tools, but until you get your head above water, because you're drowning. And I remember talking to a friend, but who was also my nurse practitioner at the time, and her telling me, if you have a broken leg, if you need surgery on your leg, before you go get surgery, you need crutches for that season until you can schedule your surgery. Yeah. She's like, why wouldn't you get on medication? You need a crutch right now, and that's okay. And I was like, okay. And we had prayed about it. We talked about it, and we talked about the different options that were out there, and ended up taking medication for about almost a year. Right?
Not quite.
Not quite a year.
Because you went off of it without even really telling me.
Really?
Well, we can get there. But it helped. Remember? It helped you a lot. Yeah.
I remember she told me, she was like, it's going to be a while before you feel any, like you notice any difference. We can adjust things as we need to go. So I had my counselor kind of helping keep track, and my nurse practitioner who was very aware of my health journey. Because there were other factors, right? Hormones. And I had so many other things going on. But I remember the first time coming to you and saying, I think I said something like this, like, this is how normal people feel in their heads.
I remember that, yeah.
This is what your brain feels this open and free and not always worried about the next thing or moving. I mean, I remember thinking my brain would move at the speed of light all the time, and now it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that that's how it could function.
I remember you saying that. And I remember saying to you, like, I feel like this is a different version of you. Yeah. This is more of the like 20-something version of you that I haven't really seen. And I had not even realized how much I had acclimated to the anxiety that existed in our relationship until Thanksgiving. You had been on your medication for about 6 weeks. I think you started in September, so probably 2 months. No,
late summer, I think.
Okay, so maybe 2 months you'd been on it. And I was running around. Your parents were in town.
Which Thanksgiving is always stressful.
A very stressful week for you. We have your parents in town. It's wonderful, but there's a lot to do.
I usually plan all the
you want everything to be perfect, the food, the meal, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I was out running errands, and you texted me and said, we have mice in our pantry, and they've eaten whatever they've eaten.
Yes.
And I remember just mentally, not even like consciously thinking to do this, but mentally bracing myself for coming home to just a really heavy atmosphere of stress, frustration. The meal's not going to be what I want it to be.
Respond.
Yeah, all of that. And not that was, not to knock on that. It just it was our normal. And so I was kind of bracing myself for that. And then I walked in, and you were like laughing. And you were like, hey, we'll be fine, and I'm going to acclimate. And, the kids were running around joking about it. And I was like, what? Have I come to the wrong house? Like, are these my people? Is this my home? And that was a revelation for me that of what had been so normal for so long, when it began to get better, it even took me by surprise. So for me to experience that, I'm sure for you, it was probably 10 times that, because you were the one more living with it and coping with it. So.
Yeah, I think the jarring difference was just so, like, I just did not even know that was what I could feel
what
like.
It could be like.
Yeah. And she was so right to say, like, you need your head above water and then go back to all your tools. Like, I had been, she had given me, I had so many other tools in my tool belt, which I was using for all the years, which would work in different
Scripture,
seasons.
prayer,
community,
walks,
gratefulness. I mean, down the list, I had all the things. But it was like I had just upgraded to next level once I was able to take this medication. And I was so grateful for that. And I think there was some time where I felt like, I don't know, is this okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I remember you telling me is, like, all these tools that I have, I think they're actually, like, going deeper.
Yeah, they were.
Because your head was above water.
Yeah.
You weren't having to fight off every thought.
Right.
In order just to get into the place of prayer.
Right.
Right. And so then you could pray with a more clear headspace. You could be back in Scripture. And so you started to wean yourself off.
Well, there were I was having other health issues at that point towards the end. And so I remember talking to my nurse practitioner about, like, okay, if I wean off, what do you think? And I definitely didn't do it completely. I mean, I talked to you a little bit, but I apparently didn't
Not
tell
much,
you.
Because I remember you saying, hey, I haven't had it in this long. And you said, because I didn't want to tell you.
I wanted you to see if you noticed.
Yes. Have I reverted back to the other version of me?
Yes.
And you were like, it was like this, I was like your
my litmus
experiment.
test.
Yeah. Of like, how's Micah going to react if I stop taking it? Because what you knew in your own heart and mind was one thing, but how it was impacting your relationships was kind of your ultimate, like, is this
because
working or not?
That was always when I could tell, like, I'm manifesting this anxiety so much that it is affecting my relationships. It's affecting my kids and my family and how people respond to me, my closest people. And I knew that was going to continue. I didn't want that to continue to be damaged in that way. And so I think I got to a place where I felt like, and I remember, I mean, there's so much you can go into the way that medication works, and, you know, creating new neural pathways and opening up opportunity for me to use, like you said, use those tools, and it really ingrain and so many things. But I felt the grace to be done for that season. Yeah. And I haven't been on it. However, I kind of had a bit of a relapse with your stroke.
Yeah, you considered.
Yeah, and I considered going back on it, but I have a new counselor now, and I talked to her, and she was great. She was like, okay, well, what is your, like, kind of line?
Yeah,
like,
that was a great
insight. And what is your, if I get here, then I know it's
that
time.
You need to go back.
I need it. And it was, I remember talking to you, it was if it starts affecting you and the kids. Like, if I start my crazy brain rage cleaning, or, you know, nitpicking at everyone, or the way that I kind of get when I'm in those high anxiety seasons. And I felt like I was able to pull all those tools again and use them in a great place. And I didn't have to get back on medication. Not that I was against it at all, but I was just like, what is that line for me? But I think what I would say is, like, definitely all those tools and medication, those are all things that God actually gives us that are blessings. But I think I experienced just grace from God. I know that he can heal these things too. And I always want to lean first on God. I'm always going to pray for you to bring healing. If he can heal cancer, which we've seen in people, if he can heal headaches, which he's done for me before, if he can heal backs and knees and whatever, like, he can also heal mental health issues as well. And so I always want to go back there first, because that's who he is. And this isn't his perfect design for us.
And those avenues that he brings healing are just different means of grace.
Right.
And I think I think there's two aspects to how God heals us or transforms us, changes us, whatever, that I think are important to hold in tension. He's a God of power.
Yep.
But he's also a God of process.
Yes.
And there are times in our lives where just his power, it's like one day I struggled with this and the next day I didn't.
Yes.
And I love those stories.
Happen.
Those are awesome.
Yep.
But then there are a lot of stories that say, I just continue to hold on to Jesus. I continue to cling to him. And there was a process he took me through. And I think oftentimes, like your story, you look back on the process and you realized all these other things you gained that you never would have gained if it was just 22 years old, anxiety attack.
Yep.
I prayed and I never had another issue with anxiety.
Yeah.
There's things that he, in his loving kindness, has allowed you to walk through that have been redeemed by him, that have been used to strengthen you, to deepen you, mature you, and all those things.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think one of the big takeaways for me from your story, and I hope people can hear this, is I think we live in a world that tries to give us quick and easy solutions.
Yep.
Or to say there are no solutions.
Yeah, and this will always be your story, and that's not.
Yep.
That doesn't have to be true.
And I think the great physician who understands every aspect of who we are, body, soul, and spirit, gives us many means of grace in order to bring wholeness into our lives, regardless of what your issue is. And maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's a different mental health issue, maybe it's something physical. There are a lot of means of grace.
Yes.
And just because man,
that's a good way to say it.
Just because man came up with it in a lab like your medicine doesn't mean it's not a means of grace.
No.
And so I think he gives us many different means of grace that as we use those things from the place of faith, trusting him as the ultimate healer, I think he can use the journey, right, to bring wholeness,
right,
and not just deal with maybe the symptom or the condition, but to actually bring wholeness to our lives. And so I think your story, it's an inspiration to me to have lived it alongside of you. Hopefully it's an inspiration to others.
Yep, I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
It's good.
So we talked about how we like to take walks when it's cold.
Yeah.
And how we need gear.
Yes.
So what are we wearing?
What are we wearing?
When we walk specifically.
Yes. So I have always been like a clothes gear
love
guy.
Gear.
And so when I put together my hatred of winter and my love for gear, it became like, oh my gosh, this is my excuse and reason to get amazing stuff. And so I am currently on a hunt for the perfect winter coat. And I can't decide. Bought that one and returned it. But
maybe different from what you would like go work out or walk in.
Well,
right?
I don't, that's what I'm trying to find. The thing that like checks all the boxes. Yeah.
I don't know.
What are you wearing?
Well, I have now, you turned me on to, I have that like thin Patagonia jacket that I got.
A little puffer.
Yeah. Somewhere when we were on a trip and found it on a clearance rack. And I love that for when we go on walks. Mm-hmm. I really love that one. But then.
You got like some kind of like.
Boot, you like got me for winter.
Walkie boots. I don't know how to describe them.
They're like Sorel, but the bottom of the
it's like
boot,
a running
it's
shoe.
like a winter boot, but the bottom of it's like, almost like a running shoe. So it's got nice grip to it, so that if we're out there and there's icy patches or something, which we've done walks where there are some of that, then I can walk through that.
Yeah, I got a pair of Sorel.
You did
walkie boots also.
Yeah, because so we could walk in the winter, and those are great because they do have like some
all
little
the icy
grip.
days.
Yeah,
it helps.
So then we can keep walking in the winter. So if anyone has suggestions for a good winter coat, I guess
perfect winter coat.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Okay, that'd be great. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for listening and joining us today on When We Walk. Hopefully this was helpful to y'all, and we will be with you next time.